Welcome to Gold Derby's Q&A panel on the making of RuPaul's Drag Race. Today, I'm delighted to introduce 4 artists with the charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent that it takes to bring the RuPaul's Drag Race universe to life. Please join me in welcoming executive producer Tom Campbell, choreographer Miguel Zarate, production designer Gianna Costa, and last but certainly not least, composer and songwriter Leland. Hey, everybody.
Ooh, hi.
Whoa. It's so exciting to have you all on. We've got so much to talk about. But, you know, I've got to say this before we even get started. RuPaul's Drag Race is not just a reality TV show. It's a global phenomenon. It's almost impossible to distill the show's spectacular success today. At last count, there are 15 spin-offs around the world, numerous specials, short-form series, and of course, the mothership, which just concluded a spectacular 15th season in which the legendary Sasha Colby was crowned as America's Next Drag Superstar. And then, of course, the show has been nominated for 39 Emmys, and so far it's won 24, including 4 consecutive wins for a reality competition program. RuPaul himself, who I think has won 7 times as reality host, a record, and he's also the most awarded person of color in Emmy history. And then finally, of course, the show has always served as a huge platform for the LGBTQ community, which has become ever more essential over the last few perilous years. So Tom, over to you. Drag Race has had a huge impact on elevating the art of drag from an underground scene to a mainstream culture and global phenomenon. This is especially important for this season as the art of drag has come under attack so ridiculously. So what does that evolution mean to you personally, and what do you see for the future of the franchise?
I just hope we get to keep doing it. I'm so grateful to Paramount, to Chris McCarthy for their incredible support. You know, I feel like if Drag Race were to debut today, it might not make it because, you know, we were at Logo, we were in a little, you know, estuary, a little safe place to kind of tell queer stories, and it just grew and grew. I go way back when we first pitched this show. RuPaul and World of Wonder had a spectacular success in the 90s with Supermodel and the VH1 show, and RuPaul took drag to a level that no one had before. And so in 2008, when we pitched it, we thought for sure we're gonna, you know, and reality shows were so, you know, ever present, the Apprentice and Top Model and Project Runway, and we thought to do one with drag would be such a spectacular amalgam, kind of a parody, but also, you know, just talk about the art of drag. And we took it to all of the usual suspects, all of the basic cable giants at the time, who are friends of ours, who we do other shows with. And they took the pitch and they laughed and they loved it. And they kind of said, but, you know, we can't program this. We can't sell this through the ad guys. And so Logo took us. Logo turned into VH1. VH1 turned into MTV. And, you know, and just when, you know, as a member of the LGBTQ, you know, culture, sometimes we get a little too cool for school and we think we're ahead of the curve. And some people are like, there's too much Drag Race and, you know, blah, blah. And you realize in the last year alone, how the pendulum can swing and how we are as powerful and wonderful and creative and dynamic as we are, we're still a number-wise minority. And we're still, you know, the new playbook of villainizing, you know, smaller groups is just something we always deal with in the LGBTQ community. And the good news is we're not strangers to it, and we will fight. And I think drag queens, in many, many ways and in many forms, have been on the front lines of social change. So I hope Drag Race is first and foremost entertaining, but I think it also does have that political wallop. And I'll just end with RuPaul's famous, and he goes, I make a political statement every time I bat my false eyelashes. So with that.
And it's so damn true. And and what could be more inclusive and aspirational than if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? And before we move on to the creative aspects of the show, I'm wondering if the rest of the panel want to pipe in about the current political climate and how, you know, Sarge from your show always calls the contestants they're superheroes, right? The drag queens. Let's not be mucking around with drag queens because they will fight. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts, Leland?
You know, I am so honored and grateful to be a part of the Drag Race family and to be able to work with drag queens. The influences that I grew up with that like shaped me are things like the Birdcage and Mrs. Doubtfire and Rue. And so to be able to be adjacent to that community and support that community, I'm all in. It's how can I help? Where can I help? What do you need? You know, when we get to have so much fun making this show, it's only fair that anything that threatens the existence of this community that we get to be a part of, we're here. So it's inspiring to see people ready to fight, ready to go, and it's inspiring me to be, just as loud as I can for these queens.
And Miguel?
I mean, it's disheartening. You know, the reality of it is that it's happening and you're seeing it firsthand. And I'll be 40 in July. So I've seen the trajectory of it all. I thought we were past this. So now that it's happening, it kind of puts you into full gear and full swing and makes you wanna be even gayer and figure out how to make a statement and figure out how to embolden these drag queens and this show and put forth more effort on your end to live a stronger, louder, prouder life and create a stronger, louder, prouder show.
Love it. Gianna, final word to you before we move on.
Yeah, like the bravery the queens have, I can't personally imagine with what is happening, especially right now. I've been on the show, you know, for over 10 seasons, and, you know, I've seen the show develop, and I really, truly thought that we would never get to a place like this again. So to have the bravery to continue doing what you're doing and learning from past queens as well, but I really hope that the new queens that are coming out will, you know, as was said earlier, like fight like hell, because there's a lot of people who are not in the community who are also fighting like hell, you know, allies. And it's like, I'm ready to throw down, and I know a lot of friends who are too, so.
Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the show itself, because there's just so much to unpack from this season. So many viral moments. For example, Anitra walking that effing duck. I'm going to try to be good today. Sasha Colby being she walked out into the workroom, and I was like, oh, okay, well, she might win this damn thing. You got Let Loose, Lucy's song, Sugar and Spice, first siblings. And of course, Malaysia Baby Doll Fox winning Miss Congeniality. There's a lot of great highlights, but Wig Loose, the Rusical, I didn't think you could top the Rusicals from the last couple of years, particularly the Moulin Rouge, which I thought was incredible, but you did. 12th episode of the season. It was a great whole sequence of events that we got to see unfold. Tom, with Wig Loose, it was so great. Talk me through how the team came up with the concept and how you collaborated with, you know, songwriters, music producers, and choreographers to bring it to life.
We kind of work on Drag Race now year round. We're always thinking, we're texting each other, TikTok videos, like whatever kind of sparks our interest. And we always know there's going to be a musical, and we always know we have to outdo ourselves. We take that responsibility very seriously. And this year, I think I have to give a lot of credit to Michael Seligman and John Pauly, who are producers on the show, have been there a long time, incredibly creative. And I think, and again, a good idea comes from many sources, but they were like, you know, Wig Loose, get it? Wig Loose. And we were like, yes, we get it. Like, again, in some ways, it's just about a parody, something you can parody and add something fresh to. And so that made perfect sense. So we did a town where you couldn't do drag. And we thought it was campy and fun, even though there was, last summer when we shot it, there was violence in clubs, and there's always the reading, but there was no way we could have imagined. And then we talked to the team, and we talked to, Leland, and we talked to, Miguel comes in and choreographs and turns into magic. Gianna creates our main stage and transforms it into like a whole other world. But we could not, and we loved it. And we watching the queens perform, watching them rehearse. They often do it in a day or 2 days. It's an incredibly turning thing. And then it's done, but it's such I can't tell you the feeling I have, and I think we all have when it's in the can. We're just like, wow, our hair is blown back because the queens give so much. But in terms of the content of the piece and about a town where you can't do drag and drag is illegal, we had sort of no idea that less than a year later it would be not just fiction but a harsh reality. So that was an amazing, sad occurrence.
Yeah, incredible that it's actually not that far from reality these days, which is insanity. Miguel, I heard that the staging with Loose created some insecurities for some of the queens, but you were able to boost their confidence. How did you approach those insecurities when you're trying to bring them together?
I mean, I deal with celebrities on different shows and pop stars all the time, and they're full of insecurities and they have a different range of talents. You know, a singer for the most part is a prominent with their voice. So they're not much different, you know, so I'm kind of I'm used to working with people that have an insecurity with movement and or dance. Sometimes there's people who aren't, but I go into it with set choreography that I feel confident in, that I can vouch for, that if I were to see this on television or on a show or on a stage, I would be like, that's good choreography, but not to the extreme where it's dance focused, like for a dancer, but not to where it's so dumb that anyone can do it. And so I start there, and then once I address and work with the queen, right off the bat, I can tell like, oh, she feels more of a character. So then you explain the choreography within a character as opposed to with the counts. Then there's the dancing queen. You give her all the counts and you like let her live her life. But I don't know. It's a lot of fun. I'm a big personality myself, so to get to work with other big personalities has always been something that I've enjoyed choreographically. And there's nothing better than working with drag queens.
Yeah, I can imagine. Leland, music is so central to the show, obviously, and you've worked across a number of shows. So what stands out to you when approaching writing for this franchise, particularly when you have something like this particular episode?
You know, writing for this show is, I would say, getting put in a sandbox with like the best toys you can imagine, you know, or like, or getting to use my entire toolkit, my whole skill set. I feel like I get to pick my favorite parts of everything that I love doing, whether it's writing pop songs for pop stars or a musical theater number for our like Vegas show or something like that. The TV show is all of those things combined, sprinkled with so much comedy, which I love doing, and I love infusing comedy musically through the instrumentation, through specific instruments, whether it's a flute or a timpani or a drum sound, or lyrically, or through just simply noises or screams. You know, with a musical, you get to infuse all of those things throughout and give these queens opportunities to have really impactful moments. You know, when I heard about Wig Loose and when Tom told me about the concept, I was so inspired. And the first thing I did was went on a walk around my neighborhood and listened to the Footloose soundtrack to get into the headspace, and then watched the movie that night, and just doing that deep dive to get even more inspired. And usually the initial burst of ideas come out when I'm on that walk. And so for this one, I immediately started going through my Rolodex of singer friends and who could sing what part, how do we bring these characters to life. And putting together a musical is such a delicate process because there are so many pieces within my control and not within my control. You know, we work so hard to put this musical together musically, story-wise, production design, choreography, and then we have to let it go. And that is the craziest feeling in the world, especially for someone like myself who can somewhat be a control freak. But it is the best experience. It's such a roller coaster, and Tom said it beautifully, where once you see them perform it and you see the camera pan out and they're doing the choreography for Wig Loose, throwing their arms in the air, I got chills every single time I would see that shot. So it's just the best.
Yeah, I can. And Gianna, let's talk about, you know, the set pieces for Wiggly's. What stands out for you, or what was the most challenging to create?
Well, Footloose being, you know, an iconic 80s movie, which I, you know, grew up watching and loving, and taking what choreography and, you know, between Leland and Miguel and what they have going on stage is trying to make sure that we take that aspect and make it like a musical theater, and not, you know, it's not an actual like set on a show. It is an actual musical theater. It is musical theater, and giving things to provide what the queens need for their choreography, taking things out of the lyrics, just really making it feel like you're in a musical theater. And the way the show is taped, it is pretty much scene, scene, scene. So doing the flips and turns around, and I think that was the biggest thing for my department, is the quick turnaround we had to flip the look of the set and trying to make it be like that musical theater set, to like, okay, now we're at the schoolhouse, now we're at the barn. So it was just kind of, you know, playing around and seeing what could we do to really give enough of a visual impact, even though we're still on the main stage, but it is our musical theater.
Yeah, go figure, a show so closely aligned with the LGBTQ community can make an episode that felt so much like you were on Broadway. The quality was so elevated. I just think you all should be so proud. And by the way, I've got to mention, Gianna, congratulations on your first Emmy win last year.
Oh, thank you.
Like,
Thanks.
that's cool. Let's not, we cannot ignore that. Was that
I was just thinking,
experience?
Gianna, you know, does a musical one week, does a music video the next week, does a game show the next week, does a roast the next
Oh,
week.
it's every 2 days. Every 2 days.
And a week is 2 days. Sorry about that.
You're giving me too much time.
I don't, yeah, you need to, I'm getting tired just to thinking about the amount of work that you guys have to do. But yes, I always say
Thanks, yeah.
congratulations. for that.
Congratulations, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like even talking about Wig Loose and like we'll try to be like, it's a musical theater, or like trying to talk about all these different episodes. It is kind of like a whirlwind, because when we do the season, we come out of it, it's like, what did we just film? And then when the Emmys happened, I was still kind of, you know, Drag Race, you know, had just finished filming, so I was still like in this Drag Race bubble of like, what's going on? But yeah, I mean, I love this show, so.
Yeah,
It's a privilege and an honor to be a part of, like, everybody's so talented and everybody's like a family, so it's just great to be a part of it.
yeah. Tom, you've already touched on this, but I want to kind of dig a little deeper, because I'm just imagining you watching this episode, Wiggly's particularly. What was your emotional, visceral reaction when, particularly in this perilous time we're living in, what was going through your mind and yeah, what were you feeling?
Just, I mean, every bit of it is delicious. The ballad that Leland wrote for Anitra and to be finished with Sasha, which is built on drag, just felt so special and was so beautiful. Again, and we don't try to be too serious. We're always trying to find jokes, and that's the great balance. And Leland kind of brought it up, where it's like, oh, this is beautiful. How do you make it funny, or how do you cut it in half? You know, it's always, that's the drag thing, and that's the RuPaul, like, drag doesn't take life too seriously. But that song just punched me in the gut, so much so that I don't know if you saw the finale, but we recreated that ending with the queens of season 15, with Leland and with Orville Peck. And we did so much live music in the finale, and was largely inspired by what the queens are doing. But this Wig Loose thing, it touched a chord, and you know, we were raising money for the ACLU Drag Defense Fund, which you can look up and you know, there was a point where we decided where to put up the QR code, and I was like, you have to do it during that song, because like if there's anything I know, like everyone's heart was like wide open and tears in their eyes, and that's what it was like to see originally and also on the finale. Loved it.
Amazing. Let's move on a little bit, because we're short for time, but Miguel, I'm curious, actually, what's your initial approach to working with the contestants? What kind of notes do you typically give the queens to highlight them individually because they're so different, but also keep them cohesive as a group?
Yeah, it's not an easy task, and you don't have a lot of time, but every department doesn't have a lot of time. The thing is that ultimately the physical representation is kind of like my department, and so it's like the end product, you know, like everyone gives me their stuff, and then it's like, go Miguel, and I'm like, oh my god, this is real now, it's on these girls. But I just honestly, I really try to focus per contestant, and I do my best to remind them that though they're dancing, they're performing. And if there's one thing every drag queen knows how to do is perform. And so when you isolate that in that way for them, they open up. Also, I'm so I think I have a good balance of like, I'm their friend, but I'm their teacher. And so they trust me. So when they do good, I tell them, girl, amazing. And when they don't do good, I'm like, girl, that looked horrible. And so when you build that rapport with them, like every student, they want to impress you. They want to, because they know when they do good, they're going to get a treat. And when they do bad, they're going to get a bad treat, but it's only going to help them. So I think that level of trust is what ultimately allows them to shine so much. And it's really a day of rehearsal. It is one day of rehearsal, and we shoot the next day. And it's incredible to see the magic. I've never worked on a show where the turnaround rate has been that fast. And I remember with the Moulin Rouge, which was my first musical, thinking, there's no way this is gonna happen. Like, I think it's great that you guys want all this to happen. Like, I do too, but it's not gonna happen. And then you know what? It happens. Push comes to shove and you pull up and it happens.
These people they're like pros. They just know how to dig deep. What you're saying is so interesting, Miguel. You can take that away. My key takeaway is for any mentoring, you need to establish a rapport, because you cannot be stepping on eggshells around people. You have to be getting them to do their best, but you also don't want to be knocking them down. So that balance that you're able to achieve is fantastic. Without that, I don't think the choreography at all survives on the show. So kudos to you. Now, Gianna, I'm curious just about the aesthetic for the season overall, because every season comes with its own challenges and, of course, its own looks. The queens are obviously very different. So what was going through your mind at the beginning of season 15 to bring something new to the show?
Well, it's always a question of how are we going to outdo the last season, and what has gone on from last season to this season, and like how to, you know, improve upon it. What have we learned since last season? So every year I kind of step back at the end and go, okay, what could have I done better? What ideas, like what worked, what didn't work? So this season, same thing. I kind of came into it going, all right, what's going on in the world? What's the current looks of you know, culture, what's going on, and what can I bring that is a little bit different than last season? So it's always, that's the beginning of every season is just like, what can I do differently? And, you know, it also helps when you get the different episodes, and, you know, they're all unique, and working with the producers, what can we both like come up with that will, you know, outdo the last?
The pressure's on though, because what happens when you get to season 42? Like it's gonna get. I hope you're never going to run out of ideas, but it's amazing how fresh the show always seems to be, and it's always at the forefront of fashion and pop culture references and things that are on trend. So that's what I really appreciate about all the work that you do on it. Leland, you're also a consulting producer on Drag Race. Can you talk us through the balancing writing specific musical numbers with the overall vision and performance and staging aspects of the music throughout the season?
Yeah, you know, each episode is so self-encompassing that I love putting myself completely in that episode, being like devoured by that episode. And then the next day you forget about it and you move on to the next thing. It's just like that. You know, we have emails flying all the time of, do we have the files for this song? And I'm like, yeah, what season is that from? And what show is that on? You know, and because there's so many, but it is the gift truly that keeps on giving, and the joy of being able to pivot from a musical theater song to a pop song to an R&B song to at one point I'm singing, you know, like Judy Garland in my studio, trying to come up with something for a rusical or whatever, and then I am rapping references for the Queens for a girl group challenge and trying to come up with lyrics or come up with something. So it's so much fun being able to zoom out and offer different types of music throughout the season, different musical structures, different experiences, going from something like Wig Loose to jumping into the finale, which again offers 4 completely different types of songs. And I get to express 4 different versions of myself and am adapting to the song and demoing the song, whether it's Lotus for Anitra or Goddess for Sasha. I was in Australia when I was coming up with the songs for the finale, and was dancing around Troye Sivan's apartment, and I screamed at him, I think I've got it, I think I've got it. And he came down the stairs and I was like, Goddes, that bitch is a goddess, you know, and he was like, that's it. And so then you put it in a voice memo and you start sending it. I sent it to my producer, and from my voice memo on my phone, he starts building the track and we're going back and forth. And then as soon as I got back to LA, I demoed the songs, and so it's always so different, and I get to just pull from different influences. And so being able to tap into that as a consulting producer is so much fun, because Tom is so trusting and open to ideas wherever they come from. It feels always like the best idea wins, which a lot of the times is Tom's, which are just amazing. But because his ideas, he's just a genius. And so to be able to work with him and go back and forth with him is so inspiring. And one idea leads to another, and then we get to see them come to fruition. So it's an absolute roller coaster, and I just try to hang on and have the best time.
And side note, Troye Sivan is basically Australian royalty. So Leland is mixing with like the hoi polloi out there. I'm impressed.
Leland and Troye collaborate on most of Troye's music. So if you love Troye, you love Leland as well. He's everywhere.
That's it. They'd come hand in hand. Tom, you've been working on the show for many years. So how has your role expanded and changed over those years?
I was there at the beginning. The long story short is that I wanted to do something with Rue. Rain Fenton said, talk to him, because they had worked with him, you know, and were family with him and worked with him over the 90s. And Rue said, I'll do anything but a competition elimination show. So then we went off in a corner and we came up with like a Strangers with Candy, if you remember that show, kind of idea. And we pitched it to Randy Fenton, Rue and I, and we're all laughing. And Rue said, you know what we need to do? A competition elimination show. He changed his mind. And at the table, we came up with RuPaul's Drag Race, Lip Sync for Your Life, like so many. And, you know, the challenges will be based on Rue's career. He's done movies, he's done music, he's done all these things. So it has been, I know the show's gotten better because I have a DVR and I can watch old episodes, but the magic was captured the first season. And I'm also, I do a lot of development here at World of Wonder. Randy Fenton, because it's an independent company, they're very involved, but they also let me be very involved during the season. So my role has been kind of the same. And so many of us have been together for so many years. It's a weird thing in Hollywood where there's usually turnover, you know, and the idea that people can learn from their mistakes and grow, it's really powerful. So that's been amazing. And I remind us sometimes we get on each other's nerves. Nobody here.
Oh.
But I just remember, like, usually you work on a show for 5 years and you move on. It's like, we're going to be here 15. And so we really are a family, and we have to, you know, and we love what we do. I think everybody from behind the camera and in front of the camera, you know, everyone loves what we do, and we feel very lucky. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm loving my job every day.
I mean, that's a blessing, really. Not a lot of people get to say that. And But why is it shot so like in such a short time frame? Why not shoot it for longer? Is it just really about the Benjamins? Like, what's the reason?
It's a couple things. It's the budget. You know, this thing started as a very small budget. It has a nice healthy budget now, but we're not the most funded show on television, no just to anyone. And you know, we're still asking a lot of time and energy from the queens. On one level, it's exhausting. I'm from the outside looking in. You have to talk to a queen about this thing, but it's also in the right frame of mind. I think the people that really succeed, it's like a summer camp. It's like the most creative retreat you're ever going to have, where you know, and we in production, it's the queens who do it. We try to prop them up and give them opportunities to succeed. That's what we're doing, their challenges. So it's like they can act, they can dance, they can sing, they can star, you know, all these things. And if you take it in stride and kind of like, let's just go and, you know, win or lose, let's have the time of our lives. That's really what the show's about. The competition is important, but to me, it's not about the competition. It's about the platform, and it's about just showcasing the art of drag. And that was an important thing. Randy was like, it's the art of drag. Everyone didn't take drag so seriously back then, and they shouldn't take it too seriously, but it is an art form. It's a queer art form that sort of samples and comments on pop culture, and what a blast that is to do.
Absolutely. Gianna, you've been on the show for a decade. That doesn't happen very often either. What changes have you most noticed or observed over the seasons?
Well, the look changed a couple of times. When we went into season 10, that's when the workroom changed over. And I mean, I started off on the show when we were still we were on logo, and I was painting walls. Like, so to now be, you know, see how the show has grown, and how, you know, I mentioned earlier, like outdoing the sets from seasons before, and like, you know, last season's music video, which was super cool, and working with lighting, and, you know, how can we like make this kind of like an homage to like Scream, Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson, like kind of have that vibe, like, you know, considering what we came from on when I start in season 5, which was still, you know, great, but changing it for, you know, today it's just I'm just glad that I have had the opportunity to grow from that season to now. Here we are today, but yeah, it's been evolution.
Yeah, I mean, the show is so much more polished, obviously, than it was in the first couple of seasons. But I mean, people are still saying season 6 is one of the best seasons ever. You know, for me, it's always going to be season 13. But you know, everyone has their season. I get it. You know, Miguel, I'm very interested in this question because I've asked it for other choreographers, and it fascinates me because it's something that I can't imagine how you deal with it. How do you work with the other departments to make sure the performances that you are choreographing are captured in their full glory?
Well, I've never been part of a team that actually listens as much as they do to me. And so I've always felt a great deal of respect being given to me. And I've also never been on a show where really, if you ask, it happens. And so I remember getting a layout of the desks and the classroom scene, kind of like where they wanted things to go. And it wasn't like set in stone, but I had the idea, oh my God, like if I can get those desks to move, then we can get the classroom to move. And then it's not just a straight, steady shot. Then we can go right and left and build and stuff. And so I pitched Gianna the idea, and I was like, hey, I really want these desks on wheels. Is it possible? And sure enough, it was possible. And then they detached the chair, and like, it's crazy because we have no time, but I've never been like, I've never asked something and then they're like, no, rarely. And if it's a no, there's a good reason why, you know. Even once last minute for the Moulin Rouge, I had an idea for chains, because the lyrics said chains, like that Deja had chains on the guys. Girl, I went to Home Depot myself and I just grabbed the chains, and I had 2 collars at the house, like collars, because there was no time to ask the department. And I was like, you know what, if you can take on this responsibility, do it. But it's that type of work environment and this type of team, like it's incredible. It's incredible. And I mean, I'm thankful that I get to do what I get to do, and the choreography is so important, but the way that they adapt to the choreography and we all adapt to each other is the most important part for me.
It takes a village and everyone's responsible, but I have to also shout out to Nick Murray, our director, our twice Emmy Award winning director, who puts his heart and soul into everything we do. And the musicals are his passion. And he every year thinks of a new way, a steady cam, some way to bring it to life, to make it burst off the scene. So I just had to shout out to my friend Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's at bringing their A game, and if not, the show just doesn't work. And so, I mean, it's a testament to all of you. Leland, your work features collaborations with numerous LGBTQ artists. Why is it important to you to utilize your talent to support queer visibility in film and TV and music? And what stands out for you when working on Drag Race for that?
Yeah, I think working with queer artists, queer creatives brings a level of joy and humor and creativity that I really respond to and want as much of in my life as I can get. It just leads to a really wonderful quality of life. And it leads, just to like so much laughter and respect, and whether it's, working on a show like the other two, or Love Victor, or for like Troye Sivan, we've written 2 albums together, just finishing a 3rd. I am just lucky to work on things that I love, and these people happen to be incredible queer pioneers and creatives. And so, and with Drag Race, it's the culmination of everything I love. It is the pop melodies, the catchy melodies, the vocal production, the musical theater, the comedy through instrumentation, the big sets, the lighting, the camera work that I grew up watching in movie musicals, and never imagined that I would at one point would be standing in the middle of the stage in Moulin Rouge with a camera going all the way around me and thinking, this is that shot. This is that, I know that shot. This is that shot, and so, and I think also being able to experience being in the musical for Moulin Rouge last season gave me a new perspective of what the queens go through once I hand the music off. And so that was really important, and with Drag Race, the unique element, one of the many unique elements, is that it's a competition. So not only am I trying to write really great, catchy, comedic, emotional songs that are 1 minute and 15 seconds, I'm trying to create all of these parts that are equal and are equal opportunity, and have, if a queen rises to the occasion, she can steal the show. She can steal the show. Everyone has an opportunity to have their moment. So there are a lot of things to balance, but I think that's where the beauty is. And when all the stars align, like they did in Wig Loose, it's really magical.
One of the reasons that Leland is so prolific, that he's so talented that even if he was a jerk, you would work with him. But he also happens to be the nicest, most collaborative, most upbeat, most it's incredible. And I'm glad he works for the good, because his songs are so catchy. I think if he worked for the bad side, for the dark side, the same.
So Leland, you could be a complete, crazy person, and yet you'd still be getting the work. So that's good. At least you've decided to go to the live.
Good to know, honestly.
To finish up today, I mentioned earlier on in our panel some of the highlights from season 15. So I want to go around the table now and ask you all what your highlight was from season 15. We've talked a lot about Wig Loose. Maybe there's something else, a moment perhaps that you will never forget. For me, it was when Anitra did that roundhouse kick and broke the wood.
Yes.
I was like, what on earth is happening? That is incredible. I think we've seen that scene 50 times in this household. Who would like to go first? Have you got a particular moment that you want to highlight?
I'll go first, if you don't mind. My favorite moment of season 15 is actually getting to choreograph Cake and Candy with RuPaul, and just getting to work with him on a real level. Like, he's now the drag queen, he's now the star, he's now the pop star, and he gets better and better. I remember when it was initially pitched to me a couple seasons back, like, I think we're gonna try to convince Ru to do a performance, and I'm like, no shit, like, this is amazing. And he was a little tentative at first, and then now we've just built a rapport, and he goes for it, and he like lives his fantasy. And I grew up on RuPaul in such a big way, so to get to work with him personally, every time we get to do those performances, if we could do a performance every episode, I'd be the happiest. It's a dream come true, and his music is great, and there's no one like him. So that's the highlight for me, season 15.
I have a behind the scenes moment of this, which is, we do the grand finale, we do it in front of an audience. I always say we produce the Oscars in like 2 days instead of a month and a half. And everyone knows here and what I'm talking about. But there was a moment behind the scenes the night before. Bob Mackey had been there because we were about to honor him. We had a rehearsal with him. Jinx had just come in it was in preparation to do her Broadway, Chicago number. Leland was there. He happened to bring Troy with him, and we were watching the queens do the numbers that Miguel had choreographed, that Leland had written, and it was just the dress rehearsal, but it was this little confab of queerness. And Orville Peck was there too because they were about to do that. So it was this weird moment. It felt like we were sitting on somebody's couch, but we were all, and everybody, and especially Troy gave me, because Troy doesn't have the day-to-day, and he's just loving it. It's just like, that's a fun thing. Whatever. That was my favorite little behind the scenes.
Donna, what about you?
Well, besides like getting to do another installment of the Daytona win, which was fun to get to like re-envision it in a different setting. I love going to the main stage for the lip syncs. Like sometimes I just like there's so many different moments of past seasons where I get like the chills from how crazy it was. But I have to say the most entertaining thing was watching Sugar and Spice. Had to be the most entertaining thing, because I remember going, did they choreograph some of this? Because it was so weird, like how they had like the same moves sometimes. And I don't know, it just stuck out in my mind. Like that was the Freaky Friday. I don't know, like trying to think of like the twin movie or something where it's not Freaky Friday. What's the twin movie? Like
yeah,
where they're doing their own thing, and all of a sudden it's like they've got the same moves. It was bizarre. It was great though.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, that of course the show had to get the two of them lip sync against each other. Like, come on, that was coming. Leland, final word to you.
Highlight for me in a little behind the scenes moment is when I get to record the vocalist for the finale songs. So there's a different vocalist for each one, and it's just 45 minutes to an hour and a half of absolute madness and screaming and noises and vocal producing my friends who are incredible singers and comedians and understand the timing. And we had Vincent, who's an incredible queer artist, record It's Giving Fashion for Lux. We had my friend Jay Hart, who's a Grammy nominated singer-songwriter, do Mistress Isabel Brooks for Delusion. And so just getting to work with my friends and bring them in and see what the craziness I can pull out of them. And when they start to feel ridiculous is usually when it's right. So that's always a new highlight, that we've done in the past couple of years since I've been working on the show, is getting to work with those vocalists and bring them in. That's always such a treat. And people are so excited when I text them and I'm like, hey, I've got a finale song for so they just love it. It's always so much fun.
Well, on that note, everybody, I want to thank you once again for joining us today. This has been so enlightening and so much fun. You should all be so proud of the show that you bring to life every year. But you do it over 3 days. No, I'm kidding. And yeah, congratulations, congratulations. And I look forward to seeing you all on the Emmys red carpet.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
talking with you.